How we doing? How we doing? This is Destination Denver, Colorado, and today, a reality check. Why are people not moving to Denver, Colorado? I'm here to tell you why, starting right now. All right, this is Destination Denver, Colorado. I'm your host, Jimmy Everson. Listen, if you're interested in learning all the ins and outs, pros and cons to moving to or around the Denver metro area, then this is a channel for you. So that subscribe button and notification icon you see on your screen, make sure you click on that as I'm dropping new videos for you each and every week. And as much as I try to be a little informative here on camera, I'm also a licensed mortgage broker covering the entire state of Colorado and team with some of the state's most talented realtors. And we're helping people move here each and every day. So always know that I am the person answering your phone calls, answer your texts, answer your emails. They're winning if you need me. Now that we're done with that fun-filled stuff, let's get to what we're here for, and that is, why are people not moving to Denver, Colorado? All right, so let's start this video on the level. Negative videos always tend to get more attention than positive ones do. If I tell you 10 reasons to move to Denver compared to 10 reasons why Denver sucks, odds are more people are gonna click on the 10 reasons Denver sucks. But today's video is about being realer than that. The fact is, there is something off about Denver. There is something that is impacting this city, and it's more than just one thing, and we're gonna get to the heart of that today. So as recent as 2020, Denver and Boulder, Colorado were ranked 1 and 2. Boulder actually number 1. 1 and 2 in the nation by US News as far as being the best cities to live in the nation. Now, fast forward to this year and Boulder remains number 4 while Denver dropped to number 99. You're talking a pretty substantial drop from number 2 to 99 in just 4 years. And it's not like a Colorado thing because Colorado Springs ranks number 9 and Fort Collins ranks number 23. And we can say it is just one magazine's opinion, but the fact is, the flow of people moving to Colorado and specifically moving to Denver has slowed down dramatically. We've even seen negative population growth in Denver over the last 2 years. Now, easily the number one reason why people are not moving to Denver, Colorado is because of how expensive it has become. Denver has become one of the most expensive cities in the nation. Now, I love to compare Denver's expense to those of a New York, a San Francisco, an LA, or a Miami. But the fact is, most people aren't flowing here from those cities. Nationwide, Denver is rated the 16th most expensive city by, again, this same article that talked about Denver being the 99th place. When it comes to the affordability of housing, whether you are buying a house or renting, Denver is going to rank near the highest from an expense standpoint that you're going to find. And this has become a serious deterrent to individuals moving here, to families moving here. It has impacted individuals who live in the Denver metro area who are looking to move elsewhere. It's had a huge impact. Whereas in 2020, Denver was certainly starting to become expensive, that affordability has completely gotten out of hand by 2024. And you look no further than housing competition. Redfin, as of the making of this video, talked about the median home price being $618,000. That's $618,000 for just the median home price. If you're talking about a detached home in the Denver metro area, you're looking at $712,000. And for anyone waiting for some type of housing crash or housing correction, the average sale to list price in the Denver metro area as of the making of this video sat at 99.5%, meaning that the home only lost a 0.5% in sales price from the original list, not the 5 to 10 to 20% that people love to talk about. The second biggest factor in Denver, the political climate. And this affects a lot of different things, and we'll dive into it, and everybody has their opinion, and I'm sure many of them will give it here. First and foremost, crime rates. Crime rates in Denver and surrounding suburbs, including Aurora, Lakewood, Northglenn, have gotten out of hand. We are high in violent crime reports. We are high in vehicle theft. We are high in break-ins. Crime is a significant issue within the Denver metro area. Now, we can look at statistics that say that Denver is starting to make some progress in that area. And at the end of the day, I've always said, if you start at 0, it's easy to go up. But if you start at a really high number, it's easy to go down. I feel like Denver the crime here got to a point, statistically speaking, where it got out of hand. So to see some improvement, I mean, you would think it had to go one way, and improvement was going to be that way. Now, this is one of those tough parts of the conversation, because I live in Colorado, I live in Denver, I'm raising my family here, and I have never felt unsafe in Denver. I truly believe it's one of those communities where as long as you do your due diligence and your research, you can find plenty of areas that provide safety, or at least as safe as any other place that you're going to find in the US. But these stats, they're unavoidable. We can't deny them. And there are communities in Denver and the metro area that are being severely punished by them. You also can't talk about Denver and many of these bigger cities, but without bringing up homelessness. And homelessness has become, that situation has become almost exhausting. If you talk to a lot of residents of Denver and neighboring suburbs, especially those suburbs and towns that are closest to Denver. So we really started to see an uptick in homeless around the 2012, 2013, as Denver started to grow. Along with that homelessness, and I'll make some folks mad here, certainly being in the real estate industry as I am, but that's also around the time that you started to see an increase in the conversation around gentrification, around neighborhoods within Denver that had long been affordable for certain communities, where people started getting pushed out, and you started seeing new development. Now, again, when you have a lot of people moving to a community, and Denver saw explosive double-digit growth in some sectors over the decade of 2010 to 2020. You saw a lot of growth. And because of that, you saw home prices go up, you saw rent go up. So you had people who already lived here become homeless. You had people moving here who, it does not appear, ever found homes. And then on top of everything, you want to talk about a match to gasoline. Enter the pandemic in 2020, and the homeless situation gets out of control. You have camps everywhere downtown. Certainly that has gotten better, but you ask any local in 2020 what downtown Denver looked like specifically, and you just didn't want to go down there. There was homeless encampments everywhere. Denver really still searching on what to do about that situation. And don't get me wrong, as I'm speaking here, I'm not saying that gentrification is the cause for homelessness. I'm not saying homelessness is the cause for gentrification. I'm talking about the impact, the flow that one may have on the other. When we talk about homeless, I don't think Denver has ever really gotten a feel for that. They're still struggling to figure out how to be of resource to these people. I have a lot of friends locally in law enforcement, talking to them about what options they have, whether it's trying to assist these people, or, let's face it, when they're breaking the law, what actions they can take to correct them, or take action against them. And you want to talk about a rocky road. I don't know the solution there. It's pretty wild to hear. And added to that homelessness, let's face it, we've had a lot of migrants who have been bussed into Colorado, and that situation has been a bit of a powder keg, because Denver, like many cities across the nation, doesn't really know what to do about it. We have a lot, in particular Venezuelans, which I will tell you right now is near and dear to my heart. My wife and her family are all from Venezuela. A couple of them are here, with us because of the atrocities happening there. But you have these people coming to this community, and there's no real resources for them. So Denver's trying to do what they can for them. And then as more of these people arrive, they've come to other suburbs. So, I live in Lakewood. I will see a number of homeless migrants out in the Lakewood community. And again, each suburb that it's impacting, they're trying to figure out who is supposed to do what. What is Lakewood's responsibility? What is Denver's responsibility? What is Aurora's responsibility? Who is supposed to take care of what? On top of this, obviously you get plenty of debates, plenty of people, their arguments. Is this place a sanctuary city? Again, one of my most frustrated topics ever. Anybody asking, for example, if Lakewood is a sanctuary city. It is not. Members of the city council who I am friends with, Lakewood is not a sanctuary city. And even if it were, a sanctuary city is merely an area in which local law enforcement does not report any illegal to the federal government. But we're not, regardless, doesn't matter. Moving on. As you can see, the price of housing being a major issue, homelessness being a major issue, and then you have the bureaucracy challenge of Denver and its surrounding cities. So when you talk to, for example, builders, people who want to come in and build new communities, new homes, new neighborhoods, the amount of bureaucracy it takes to build something in the Denver metro area, in the community around this, whether we're talking about water rights, whether we're talking about condo laws in Denver, it's very difficult to build a condo. It's very risky for developers to come in and build condos because of some of the laws behind it. So when we talk about the bureaucracy of Denver and surrounding areas, that's a huge hurdle. And I don't even have to get into, Denver used to be historically it was red, then it became purple. Now right now it leans pretty blue. I'll let all of you have that debate. There are certainly things that are happening politically in Denver that are creating a lot of frustration for folks, and we'll see how much of that gets cleared up, hopefully over the next year or two. Now, I mentioned earlier, obviously, you have some economic hardships here with affordability between housing, cost of living in general. You also have, from a job saturation standpoint, a lot of competition for some of the higher paying jobs. And when you live in a city that is expensive, it's very, very common that people are going to be aiming for the highest paying jobs available, and there's only so many of those. And a common feedback I get from people living in Denver now is that economic inequality gap increasing, where you have people who they make a great living in Denver. They enjoy it because they have the benefit of the city. They've got the Rocky Mountains. They really get to enjoy life in Colorado. And then those who, hey, they may work their absolute tail off and they're barely getting by. And it feels like in Denver, because of how expensive it's gotten, that gap has definitely widened. Now, getting into some other factors that, let's face it, certainly are not as extreme as affording a place to live, homelessness, political issues, crime, you name it. But we talk about traffic congestion. So the infrastructure of Denver was healthy throughout the 90s into the 2000s. But as we've grown in population, Denver doesn't necessarily have the infrastructure for some of this. So traffic, especially along I-25, heading up through the city, definitely south as you get through the Denver Tech Center, and then I-25 just north as you get around I-70, we call it the mousetrap to this day, you'll always tend to find congestion around that area. Now, when it comes to traffic congestion, I think it depends on where you moved here from. If you've lived in New York, an LA, a San Fran, a Miami, a Chicago, I lived in New York for multiple years. I don't think traffic here is that bad because you're not stopped. It might be slow, but you're not stopped. But if you're coming from an area where you are not used to traffic, or worse yet, if you're from Denver and you were used to there being no traffic, by this point, those folks they're kind of going crazy about it. And for a state that wants to talk about how much we love to get outside, and we really do, it's sunny all the time, our air quality is horrible. And by horrible, I mean that it is routinely being ranked as some of the worst air quality in the nation. And it's a shame for some of the reason it's happening. And a lot of that has to do with fires. That is a common issue for it. Now, again, population, smog, cars, all of those things. But it does not help when recently, as dry as Colorado gets, where every summer we tend to have wildfires. Thankfully, those wildfires have been, somewhat under control. We've certainly lost some houses. I don't want to downplay that, but the air quality, those fires combining, it can be bad news for a lot of folks living in the Denver metro area. And that's a Colorado issue. That's not a Denver issue. Mentioned fires, you fight fires with water, and there's not a lot of water. And water rights in Colorado becoming stricter and stricter now. Again, this is not just a Denver issue. It's going to impact development. You can't build new neighborhoods, new buildings, new anything if you can't get water to them. But water rights are going to be an ongoing thing to look at nationally. There's a lot of states, Arizona and Nevada come to mind, that rely on some water rights coming out of Colorado. So water rights will be a big factor to keep an eye on as we move forward. And then a couple others to wrap up, and this is especially for the east side of town. So West Denver, the western suburbs of Denver can only stretch so far. You run into the Rocky Mountains and that's that. Whereas as you start to move east, it's flat land. It's Kansas. With all due respect, Kansas, flat as can be, and so that is great for development. You can just build and build and build. But one of the knocks on Denver is the fact that that urban sprawl is really starting to spread. So some of these communities, you used to be able to get to Denver from most neighborhoods in, that 20 to 30 minute mark. Now, as they continue to build, pretty soon you're going to have neighborhoods that are still part of, say, Aurora that might be, close to an hour from Denver as it continues. So that sprawl, and we don't just talk about east, you also talk about north and south. So I remember when I was a kid, we would drive from Denver down to Pueblo, where my mother's family was from. And between Denver and Pueblo are Castle Rock, which is a pretty large suburb now, and Colorado Springs, our second largest city. There was a lot of talk of how at some point Denver to Pueblo would become basically one city. And it's almost there. Going from Denver to Castle Rock, there's a small gap. Going from Castle Rock to Colorado Springs, again, a small gap. Same thing as you go north. A lot of these communities building and building. So that sprawl where the people who rely on Denver have to live farther and farther and farther away from the city. And the last two I want to mention, and they're kind of like counter to each other, but the first was social isolation, which is something that I hear repeatedly from people who move here, specifically those who move here alone, or maybe a couple that move here, but they don't know anybody else as they get here, is that it can be hard making new acquaintances, making new friends, finding new connections. Even, especially for those who work in remote positions, or maybe they work in a smaller office where they can't rely on going to work and meeting some new people. So social isolation, one of the biggest factors mentioned. And then again, when you talk about being isolated, the counter, overcrowding in some of our outdoor activities. So there's so many great hikes, great parks, and all of these things to do in and around Denver, the Front Range, suburbs. And, I don't think there was ever a time when you could go to, say, a Cherry Creek State Park or a Chatfield Reservoir and it be empty by any means. But you could go to hike after hike after hike in the Front Range and into the mountains and have a trail to yourself, or maybe see a person or two. Now you go to some of the more popular trails and there are people everywhere all the time. Now, that might not bother some, but for people who really, look to that for some privacy or a little that time away, they don't want to see a million people, it's still kind of wild. Especially when you go to some of the obscure trails where you wouldn't expect to see it packed, and there's people everywhere. So I suppose if you're socially isolated, you could just start hiking and that might solve the problem. And I've made plenty of videos about why you should consider not moving to Denver. But today was one of those where I really think that we needed to be real with each other and understand. I am a firm believer in Denver's future. I am a firm believer that the issues that Denver faces are ones that they could face head on and correct. I just know that today, Denver is not in as strong a position as it once was. To see us ranked 99th on any list, I don't care how accurate it is, but to see that, knowing how highly we were considered just a handful of years ago, tells me we have some work to do. And who knows, you might be one of those folks moving here and helping us accomplish it. And that would be a great opportunity to hit me up, whether it's a phone call, whether it's a text, whether it's an email, knowing that I'm always the person answering those. This is Destination Denver, Colorado. I'm your host, Jimmy Everts. That was Why Are People Not Moving to Denver, Colorado? Until I see you next time, peace.